I'll share my screen. Just wait for a minute. Yeah, folks. Okay. See, in the previous session, actually, we have discussed about. Okay, we have discussed about bean auto wiring, right? I'll add the statements which are related to it. Actually, I didn't add yesterday, but I'll add 2, 3 statements related to bean auto wiring. First of all, wiring a bean is nothing but what? Wiring a bean is nothing but combining or connecting a dependent object with its dependencies. A dependent object with its dependencies. That is called wiring a bean. Okay. So what will happen in bean auto wiring? In bean auto wiring, the spring container, the spring container automatically injects the dependency objects to the dependent object without providing any configuration in the XML file using constructor hyphen arg or property tags. Am I right, Arnav? That's what happening in bean auto wiring. This is a facility. This bean auto wiring facility, bean auto wiring facility is only for what? Is only provided for dependencies of reference type. Otherwise, only provided for object type dependencies. Okay, right. So how to enable auto wiring, bean auto wiring? To enable bean auto wiring, on a bean or on a class, anything on a class, bean means class, on a class, what we need to do now? Add AutoWare attribute to the bean tag. This is a way to enable the auto wiring. What's the default value of AutoWare attribute? No, which means by default auto wiring is disabled. And what are the other values of whatever attribute? By name, by type, constructor. So I'll write some statements, then example code I will copy paste. I'll write about description about by name, by type, all such kind of things. Okay. The default value of AutoWare attribute is no. It means by default, auto wiring on a bean is disabled. Okay. To enable, you can specify one of the below three values for the AutoWare attribute. Am I clear? These are called auto wiring strategies. Okay, what are the three values? By name, by type, constructor. I'll add the remaining statements later, don't worry. But these are the different strategies that we discussed. You know what happens in by name strategy? If AutoWire is equal to by name, then what container do? The container is going to search for a bean whose ID is matching with the property name. ID matches with the property name or the reference variable name, better word. If a bean ID matches with the reference variable name, returns the dependency injected by calling which method? Setter method. You know, when you write by name or by type, which method will be called by the container for injecting the dependency object? Setter method will be called for injecting the dependency object. Am I right or not? Only for constructor, the container will call the constructor. Otherwise, it is going to call the setter method for injecting the dependency objects. Okay, right. I will add the example and all those things. Okay, I'm not writing all of them because it will take time and copy paste the code and all. I'll do that today. At least I've written some statements today. Okay, here I'm going to write the remaining things. Then I will provide it to you. You don't worry on that. Okay, you don't worry on that. I will provide the remaining things, guys. You don't worry on that. Okay. Okay. Now, folks in online, just click the link shared with you in the chat box. Okay. Next, guys. So we got so far, guys, we got so far about bean auto wiring concept in the last example. We discussed extensively about how to use primary attribute. Okay. When we will get unsatisfied dependency exception, how to resolve that exception. These are all the things in the last class I told. And apart from that, we also started our discussion with a concept called what? What is the meaning of initializing a bean and disposing a bean? What is the meaning of initializing a bean and disposing a bean? That's what I told. Okay. So today we want to continue and we will discuss about how we can able to write initializing and disposing a bean. And also today we are also going to know about what is interface injection, how it is support in the Spring. In Spring, there is a limited support for interface injection. So we are going to look at into that limited interfaces. Okay, right? So then next we are going to look at about a concept called as what is bean life cycle. So these are all the things that we have to discuss in our today's session. Okay, that is our today's agenda. Let's start. I told in the last session, okay, once the dependencies, the bean object is created. Okay, once object is created and also the dependencies are injected. Okay, see, object is created. Who will create the object? Container. So container creates object is created by the container. Dependencies are also injected. Dependencies are injected. So once dependencies are injected, immediately I want to execute some logic by the container. So if any logic that you want to execute immediately after injecting the dependencies by the Spring container, then you have to define this type of logic as a initialization logic in the bean. This type of logic, you should write like what type of logic? Initialization logic in the bean. Are you getting my point? Right. So this type of logic, you should write like what type of logic? Initialization logic in the bean. Am I clear with that? Right. Try to understand now. This type of logic, we should write like what type of logic? Initialization logic. So where do you write this type of logic? Where should I write so that the container will automatically execute after once the dependencies are injected, after injecting the dependencies? For that, okay, Spring has provided one interface called initializing bean. One interface provided by Spring called initializing bean. This is an interface from Spring framework only. By implementing this interface, you can override a method called after properties set method. You can override which method? By implementing this interface, you can override this method. Which method I can override? After properties set method is available, this method I can override. I can override this method. In this method, I can write this logic. Then who will call this method automatically? Spring container will call when? After injecting the dependencies. First object is created by the container. After that, it will inject the dependencies also. After that, it will automatically call this method. Which method it will call? After properties set method. Able to follow me? Right. This is the Spring framework provided interface. Another option. You can write some method. Some method doesn't matter. Any method. You write some method, any method. Let's say, for example, you write a method like name can be any name, guys. For example, I took up a name called setup. Some method. This name can be any name, doesn't matter. Otherwise, you write one custom method. Custom method means user defined method. Write the logic inside it. And tell the container that this method is a initialization method. How to tell the container that this is initialization method? You need to add one attribute called init-method attribute. Which method? Which attribute? Init-method. Init-method is equal to setup. Because my method name is setup only, na? In which tag you are writing this attribute? Bean tag. You know ID attribute, you know class attribute, you know auto-where attribute. Similarly, what attribute also you are learning today? Init-method attribute you are learning. So init-method is equal to setup. If you tell the container like this, then what container will do? After creating the object, after injecting the dependencies of the object, or dependencies are injected, it will automatically call this method. Which method will call? Setup method. In the setup method, what I am writing? Logic. Now this logic is automatically executed now. This logic I am calling it as what type of logic? Initialization logic. So tell me, in how many ways that you can define the initialization logic in a Spring Bean in a class? In a Spring Bean class, two ways. One way is what? Implement this interface called initializing bean. Override this method called what? After property set method to define the logic. Then who will call this method automatically? Spring container. You don't worry. When? After injecting the dependencies. Suppose you don't want to implement this interface. Or the other way? Another way of doing the same thing is what? Create one custom method in your class. Write the logic in that method and specify that this is the initialization method. How to specify it is initialization method to the container? By adding one attribute. What's the attribute which tells it? Init-method. That's it. This is the, actually annotation is also there, but today we are not discussing about annotation. That's why I'm talking only with respect to XML without annotations. If I combine with annotation, three ways are there. If I combine with annotation, three ways are there. There is one annotation available. At annotations, I'll explain this. Post construct. One annotation is available. Annotations will start probably tomorrow. We are going to start from tomorrow about the Spring Bean annotation, Spring Core annotations. Okay, guys. So presently, two ways I want to explain without annotations. This is called initializing a bean. Same thing, disposing a bean. Disposing a bean in the sense what? Before the bean is getting removed from the container, I want to release some resources. I want to clean up some resources like closing the database connections or connections with any external servers like messaging servers or email SMTP servers or database servers. I just want to clean the resources before the bean getting removed from the container. Okay, so where can I write that type of removal logic, cleaning up the resources logic? This logic I can write by implementing one interface called disposable bean. What's the name? Dispose. I let clearly disposable bean, guys. Guys, there is an interface available. There is an interface available. That interface name is called what? Disposable bean interface. It is also given by the Spring framework only. You no need to worry. And this is providing one abstract method called what? Destroy. Destroy. What's the method name? Destroy. Disposable bean interface has provided one method called destroy. You write the logic inside it. That's it. Who will automatically call this method before removing a bean from the container? Spring container will call this method. Automatically, this disposing logic is executed or not? This cleanupping of removal or cleanup of the resources logic get executed automatically. This is one approach. Another way is what? Right. Don't implement. Suppose you don't want to implement. Okay. Don't implement and don't override this method. Create a custom method. Create a custom method. Custom method. It is your choice now. For example, I am creating a method called tear down. Just I'm writing the name. Don't worry. Tear down is a method. This is my own method name. I put logic inside this method. I put the logic inside this method. In which method I'm putting the logic? Tear down method. But how to tell the container? This is the method you have to call while removing the bean from the container. For that, we should add one attribute called destroy hyphen method. What the attribute name? Destroy hyphen method is equal to tear down. Tear down. Did you guys understood now? So what are the two new attributes you learned today in this bean tag? These are attributes, guys, not child tags. Child tag is constructor ARG. Another child tag is property. That's it. Only the two child tags you are going to learn. What are the two child tags? Constructor hyphen ARG is one child tag. Property is another child tag. That's it. They are the child tags. These are the child tags or attributes. Attributes. Where do you write the attribute? In the bean tag only you'll write, not under the bean tag, in the bean tag. Okay. Destroy hyphen method is equal to what? Tear down. Then container will automatically call this method while removing a bean from the container. So this method contains a logic to remove the or clean up the resources. This is called disposing a bean. So finally, in how many ways we can dispose a bean? Or in how many ways we can clean up the resources of a bean? Two ways. Two ways. One way is what? By implementing the disposable bean interface and override the destroy method. Second way, write a custom destroy method. This is called what method? Custom. Custom destroy method means not the name destroy. Name can be any name of your choice. This is called custom method. Create a custom method to define the logic and tell the container it is a destroy method. How can you tell the container it is a destroy method? By adding this attribute. Which attribute you have to write? Destroy hyphen method is equal to what is the name I'm writing? Tear down. The method, my method name is tear down. That's what we are discussing today. Are you able to get my point? Okay. Sir, can I write both? Yes. Suppose I am writing a class. Generally, that type of case doesn't arise, but still, I want to explain. What is the explanation? Sir, I want to write a class like this. Public class, some class names are doesn't matter. Let's say service A implements Initializing bean. These are all I'm explaining to understand the bean life cycle, sir. Spring bean life cycle important. Okay. If I talk really, we are not going to implement initializing bean interface, disposable bean interface at any time in our application development. We have annotations, we are going to use them. We are going to use annotations approach mostly. But why I'm explaining all these things? If you want to understand the bean life cycle today, you should know about all these things. What things are that you should know? Initializing bean, okay, disposing bean, these things you should know, because in the life cycle, these steps will come. That's why I'm explaining it. Okay, good. So service A implements what? Service A is a class which implements what? Initializing bean interface, correct? Now tell me, if it implements initializing bean interface, which method I should override? I'll change the color. Tell me which method I should override here. Okay, I'm writing @ override because we are overriding the method. Tell me what's the method we are overriding? Public void after properties set. Guys, here I am writing the logic, some logic. But I also wanted one more method with remaining logic. I have a, what I want to say, I have multiple initialization logics are available. If I write multiple initialization logics in one method, it looks odd. It is not good to read. So that's why I want to create one more initialization method. I want to create one more initialization method because I have multiple initialization logics are available. One initialization logic is to connect with the database server, and another initialization is to connect with the SMTP, or let's say email server. So I want to, instead of writing everything in one method, I want divide. So I can write custom init method also. Custom init method means what? My own method. Public void, let's say method name can be any name, sir. Let's say, for example, I'm writing init. See, both these methods are containing what? Both these methods are containing what? Initialization logic only. Both are initialization logics only. But instead of writing in a single method, I want to divide it into how many methods? Two methods. I want to divide it into two methods. The first method is after properties set method, and the second method is what? Init method. Am I clear with that? Right. So tell me, who will automatically call this method? Container. But container does not call the second method automatically. So for that, which attribute I need to add? Init hyphen method. Init hyphen method attribute is equal to, what's the method name? Init. Then first container will execute this method. After that, container will execute this method. So first container will call after property set method of this interface. After that, container will call this init method. So both are executed. Both are executed by the container. When? After injecting the dependencies. After injecting the, this is called initializing a bean. This is called initializing a bean. Initializing a bean. Same thing applicable for destroying a bean. Same thing applicable for destroying a bean. So to destroy the bean, tell me which interface I need to implement? Disposable bean. Which one? Disposable bean. Then tell me which method I should override? Destroy method. Here I am writing some cleanup resources, this cleanup logic, but I need multiple cleanup logics. I can create one more method also. So in this one more method, what I'm writing now, public void, let's say my method name is called, it could be anything, close. See, close is a custom destroy method. Tell me, container will call which method automatically? Destroy method of disposable bean. But how to tell the container? You have to call the close method also after that by adding attribute. Which attribute? Destroy hyphen method is equal to close. Destroy hyphen method is equal to what? Close. This is how you can able to write the attributes. So you got the concept called initializing a bean and disposing a bean, right? In the life cycle example, I'm going to show you whether these methods are executing in the same order or not. Because I'm going to tell about life cycle to you, right? So what is the concept so far I have explained to you? Initializing a bean and disposing a bean. So first, let us add the statements for that. Next, I'm going to talk about bean life cycle example. In that life cycle example, I will show you whether initializing a bean, disposing a bean, both are working or not working. Okay, right. So, but presently, I just want to write initializing and disposing a bean. Initializing and disposing a bean. First of all, we have to write a statement called what is the meaning of initializing a bean. Initializing a bean refers to initializing a bean means or refers to executing some logic automatically by the container immediately after injecting the dependencies. After injecting the bean dependencies. This is the meaning called initializing a bean. Initializing a bean refers to what? Executing some logic automatically by the container immediately after injecting the bean dependencies. That is called initializing a bean. Okay, right? What is the meaning of disposing a bean? Executing some logic automatically by the container before removal, before removing a bean from the container. Before removing a bean from the container. Able to follow me now? That is called what? Disposing a bean. So tell me, disposing a bean refers to what? Executing some cleanup logic. Anything. Some cleanup logic automatically. Tell me, automatically by the container. Very good. Automatically by the container before removing a bean from the container. Before removing a bean from the container. This is called what? Disposing a bean. Two words now. Initializing a bean and disposing a bean. Could you guys tell me how initializing a bean will work? What happens in initializing a bean? During initializing a bean, what is going to happen? What is happening at the time of initializing a bean? What is happening at the time of initializing a bean? There is an interface available called what? Initialize. Okay. What is the initializing bean interface, right? Disposable bean interface. Two interfaces are provided. What's the abstract method of initializing bean? After property set method. So where can I write the logic now? In that method. Which method? After property set method. Who will call that method automatically? Spring. After injecting the dependencies. The Spring container will call. We no need to worry on that. Okay. Right. So Spring framework has provided initializing bean and a disposable bean interfaces to define the logics. Okay, right? What is the abstract method of initializing bean? Initializing bean interface has provided, what's the method name? After properties set method to define the initialization logic. Am I right or not? Next, disposable bean interface. Disposable bean interface has provided which method? Destroy method. For what? Okay, to clean up the resources, to define the cleanup logic better, to define the cleanup resources logic. Am I clear with that? All right. So apart from them, can we write or can we add custom init methods and custom destroy method also? Yes, we can write. If required, otherwise I can write. To define initialization and disposing logics without implementing the interface, the Spring provided interfaces. We can define custom methods. What we can define? Custom methods. Okay. All right. Custom method is nothing but what? Again, custom method means don't understand in other way. Custom method is nothing but user defined methods. User defined methods are called custom methods. Correct? Tell me. If a custom init method is defined, then how to specify it to the Spring container? A custom initialization method can be specified to the container Spring container with which attribute? Init hyphen method attribute. Custom, sir. Custom. Tell me. Similarly, a custom which method? Destroy method. Anything. Custom destroy method can be specified to the container with the destroy hyphen method attribute. Just you remember, can we, guys, can we, what I can say, can we write both? Yes, just you remember that. Okay, we can write both also. We can implement the interface plus we can write custom methods also. It is possible. Don't worry that. It is possible. Yes, we can write. That's what I'm trying to say. Am I clear with that? Yes, we can write. Now, coming to, folks, coming to example. Just I'm writing a small example to, I mean, example is just to know about which method we are overriding and something like that. Let's say, okay, I'm writing example like this. Okay, example. Understand, guys. Example. Let's say, let's keep the example in the next page because we can keep the code at one place. I'm writing a class like this. Now, public class. There is a class called, okay, DB operations, means database operations. What's the being name? DB operations, database operations. Implements what and what interface I want to implement. Initializing bean comma disposable bean, both I want at a time, because one class can implement multiple interfaces also. Yes. Okay, there are some, okay, there are some, okay, attributes are there: driver, URL, username, password. Just understand like that. Okay, tell me, what are these driver, URL, username and password? These are all called as the dependencies, because I told in a class, if you create any variables, all these variables are also called as dependencies only. But all these dependencies are object type dependencies or value type dependencies. Value type, because in Spring framework, string, you should treat the string class like a primitive, not like object. In Spring, string you have to treat like a primitive type, not like a object, not like a class or not like object. Okay, na? Right. So tell me now, these are all what type of dependencies? Primitive type. And to set the driver, to set the URL, to set the username, and to set the password, let's say I have defined some setter methods. I can't write 4 setter methods now, simply setter methods I'm writing. Am I clear? So one setter method is to set the driver. Other setter method is to set the URL. Next one is to set the username. Last one is to set the password. Like this, what I have? 4 setter methods I have. Driver, URL, username, and password. 4 setter methods I'm not writing, just setter methods comment I'm writing. After that, okay, after that, which method I'm overriding? Override, sorry. Override. Tell me what's the annotation at the rate override. Which method I'm overriding? Public void after properties set. This method I am, guys, this method I am overriding. In this method, what I am writing? Some logic. This is some logic, initialization logic. What is initialization logic? Okay. Initialization logic is open a connection with the database. Open a connection with the database. Good. And there are some other methods available. Other methods to perform the SQL operations. Okay, other methods are created to perform the SQL operations. Next, tell me, there is another interface available called what? Disposable bean. So then I'm writing at the rate override. What's the abstract method? Destroy. Destroy. Please understand. Okay, destroy. Right? Here I am writing disposing logic or cleanup logic. Okay, cleanup logic. What is the cleanup logic? Close the connection with a database. Close a connection with a database. Close a connection with a database. Everybody understand it now? Okay, right. Tell me who will automatically call these methods. So this is the one method. What's the method name? After property set method. Who will call this method automatically? Who will call this method automatically? Spring container. Who will call this method also automatically? Spring container. Spring container will call these 2 methods automatically. Able to follow me now? Right. Okay, right. In the life cycle, I will show you whether container is calling them or not. But in this, are you writing any custom init method and custom destroy method? We are not writing. Only we are just overriding the 2 methods from the 2 interfaces. But we are not overriding, or sorry, we are not writing the custom methods. In the example 2, same class I am writing. What is my class name? DB operations. But I do not want to implement the 2 interfaces. I do not want to implement the 2 interfaces. Driver, URL, username, password. Am I clear with this? Okay, driver, URL, username, and password. Tell me, for injecting these, which methods I'm defining? Setter methods. If I'm defining setter methods, tell me in the XML what tags that you are going to write? Property tags. So how many properties? Means how many dependency variables are available here? These are all primitive dependency variables. Then tell me how many setter methods I have defined here? 4. Then tell me in the XML file how many times you should start writing the property tag? 4 times. For first property, for second property, for third property, and for fourth property. So means under the bean tag, how many times property tag will come? 4 times. Property name is equal to driver. value. Next again property name is equal to URL value. Next property name is equal to username. Next property name is equal to password. Very good. Now here I am writing custom init method. Public void. It doesn't matter, sir. Your choice, whatever the name that you want, you can write. Let's say, for example, setup. Tell me, in this setup, I'm writing what? Initialization logic. Just I'm writing comments only. Initialization logic I am writing. And in this, I'm writing, let's say, open a connection with the database. There are some other methods available. There are some other methods are available. Now you tell me which method I want to write here. Custom destroy method. Let's say my method name is public void tear down. Some name I'm using, different name. Okay. Tell me this is called cleanup logic. I wanted cleanup logic in this. What is the cleanup logic? Close a connection with a database. Then, okay, now tell me in this example, okay, look at this case. Tell me in this example, okay. Tell me in this example, nice. Tell me now in this example, are we implementing any interface? Are we implementing any initializing bean, disposable bean, such kind of interfaces? Are we implementing here? We are not implementing the interfaces, but we are writing the two methods called what and what methods, setup and tear down. We are writing two methods now. What are the two methods? One is setup method and second one is the tear down method. So tell me in the XML file, we should write a bean tag na? In XML file, what tag we need to write? One bean tag we should write in the XML file. Am I right or not? Okay. Okay. I just want to write that bean tag also in the okay, done. Please try to understand this case. I want some space so that I can fit it in the same page. Example is in one page, bean tag in other page is not going to look good. That's why I want to write inside the same. Tell me. Here only I want to write. Tell me. Okay, now tell me. Which attributes I need to add now? Init hyphen method. Next, destroy hyphen method. So I'm writing here. What I'm writing now? In bean tag, of XML, you have to add the what and what? Init hyphen method and destroy hyphen method attributes. Tell me how to write that bean tag. Just only bean tag. I'm not in XML, only bean tag. Tell me bean. For example, ID is equal to DB. Class is equal to DB. Okay, fully qualified name, but okay, DB operations. DB operations. Tell me next one. Init hyphen method. Who are the init hyphen method? Setup. Setup. Next one is destroy hyphen method. Destroy hyphen method is equal to tear down. Tear down. Okay. Let's say, for example, slash close. It may not be slash close. Okay. Tear down. I want to make it in one line. Now, did you guys understood about how we are going to write the tags now? So, previously we know ID attribute, class attribute, if you want auto-wire attribute, primary attribute, you know them. Now, the other attributes you learned today. Init hyphen method is one attribute and destroy hyphen method is other attribute. Very good. This concept name is called what and what initializing and disposing a bean. And I'm going to show you whether these methods are called by the container or not in the bean lifecycle example. Now we are going to look at about interface injection. What injection? Interface injection. Okay, right. Let's talk about it. It is also a very small thing because in Spring, there is a limited support for interface injection. Some people say even Spring does not support interface injection, but it is not correct, but limited support is available. We'll see what does it mean. Understand it. Only for specific cases, we are going to use interface injection. Okay, first I'll explain that is better. See here. First of all, you know what is the meaning of sector injection? First of all, means what's happening in sector injection? What is happening in sector injection? If you tell me, then you look at about what is interface injection. I mean, in sector injection, a dependency is injected by calling setter method by the Spring container. In setter injection, a dependency will be injected by the container by calling setter method. In constructor injection, then the dependency is injected by calling the constructor. Dependency is injected by calling the constructor. In which injection? Constructor injection. But in setter injection, the dependency is injected by calling the setter method by the container. In interface injection, similar to that, a dependency is injected by calling the method provided by the interface. Are you able to follow me? Here, in a setter injection, dependency is injected by calling setter method. In constructor injection, a dependency is injected by calling constructor. Who is calling? Who is calling that setter method? Who is calling that constructor? Spring container. Because who is responsible for injecting the dependencies in Spring? Spring container. Container is responsible for injecting what? Dependencies. Container is responsible for injecting the dependencies. Tell me, who is going to call the setter method for injecting the dependencies? Container. Who is going to call constructor for injecting the dependencies? Container. Similarly, now the container injects the dependencies or inject the dependency by calling a method provided by the interface. So if a dependency is injected by calling a method provided by the interface, it is called what injection? Interface injection. So tell me what is happening in the interface injection finally? What is happening in the interface injection? A dependency is injected to a bean by calling a method which is provided by the interface. Who is calling that method? Container. Container. In setter injection, container will call the setter method for injecting the dependency object or dependency. Constructor injection means container will call the constructor for injecting the dependency. In interface injection, container will call the method provided by the interface. That's it. Method provided by the interface. It is called what injection? Interface injection. But coming to Spring, sir, I will write my own interface, means custom interface. Custom means again what? User defined. I will create my own interface and I will write a method for injecting the dependency. Then container does not call that method and inject the dependency. Because actually in Spring there is a limited support available for what injection? Interface injection. Okay. Spring has a very limited support for what? Interface injection. Very limited support. I'll tell you that. Okay, right. So Spring, understand, Spring, okay, Spring will use interface injection only for the two predefined, only the two predefined interfaces. Only for the two predefined interfaces. And the names are bean name aware. Second one is application context aware. These are two interfaces. If you clearly observe and we'll complete this, then we can start with the bean life cycle. Then we can come out of XML, we can happily enter into annotations. But in interviews point of view, these are all important. They'll ask, tell me what is interface injection. Okay, right? Asking a question is very simple, right? But we should tell the answer, na? Question everybody can ask. Am I right or not? Good. But we should tell the answer, right? Correct? So what's the question? Tell me what is interface injection. You have to say answer, right? Good. Then they'll ask a question. Okay, I will write one interface. Then tell me interface injection is supported or not. Will the interface injection will happen for this interface or not? No. Only for how many interfaces it is possible? Predefined. That too, how many? Only two. There are many predefined, but only for two. What are the two? Bean name aware and application context aware. Okay. One is interface called bean name aware. Second one is application context aware. And for these two interfaces only, Spring will provide interface injection support. It's a limited support. Only for these two. In that, bean name aware interface provides an abstract method called set bean name. Application context aware interface provides one abstract method called set application context. Set bean name method and set application context methods are available. Set bean name method is provided by bean name aware interface. Set application context method is provided by application context aware interface. Who will call these methods? Container. Container will call this method and injects a bean name, which is called bean ID. And one more thing I want to tell you better. So far, at the time of writing the bean tag, what attribute we are writing? ID. Remember, after ID I should write the class attribute, or after the class I should write the ID attribute? ID first, class first. Huh? ID first, class first. ID first,
ID first.
class next. Okay, good. Stick on to your answer only. Stick on to your answer only. Next question. Do you know HTML? Do you know HTML? Everybody know HTML? Yes. Do you know form tag? Form. HTML form design, you know? Form tag. What attributes of form tag, you know? Okay, action, you know, very good. Method also, you know, get to post like that. Okay, I'm writing only two attributes. Two are enough for me. I don't want multiple. Okay, let me write clearly for you. Yes, tell me once again. Form tag, HTML. Form tag contains what attribute? Action. Attribute name is action. Another attribute name is method. You're writing the method is equal to post, method is equal to get. You're writing like this in advanced programming, HTML page, form submit. Tell me, what are these action and method? Attributes. Attributes of which tag? Form tag. Which one I should write first? Which attribute I should write first? Action or method?
Action.
Say, action should be the first or method should be the first? Which one is first? Or any order?
We can write any order.
Exactly. Answer is we can write any order. If you write form, action, then method, correct. Or First method, then action. It is also correct. Both are correct. Order could be any order, sir. In a tag, attributes we can write in any order. Attributes we can write in any order. Attributes we can write in any order. No order for attributes. Attributes does not have order. Okay, right? So you can write action, method, or method, action. Similarly, in bean tag also, these are attributes only, na? What are attributes? For the question I'm asking, ID first, class first. What is the answer now? Now tell me the correct answer. Any order. I can add class here, ID here. No problem, sir. Attributes we can write in any order. Am I clear, or still you have a confusion? Okay. Should not be half-minded. Did you got the clarity now? Right. So attributes can be any order. No order for attributes. You can write in any order. Able to follow me? Very good. Next point, one more. So this is one point at least I've covered. I'm satisfied. Next one. I gave something new to you. Next. Bean tag is there. Instead of ID attribute, alternately one more attribute is available called name. Both are one and same, sir. In previous versions, there was a difference between ID attribute and name attribute. Later, Spring Framework removed those differences. Both are exactly same. What are the two attributes available here? ID or name. You can use either ID attribute or name attribute. Doesn't matter. Sometimes you may feel, sometimes you may find if you are referring any application, Google or somewhere, if you find any name attribute, then don't feel it is some other thing. In place of ID, we can also write name. Your choice, ID is correct or name is correct, followed by class. Or you can write class first, name last. Doesn't matter. Okay, right. So first I want to give a clarity. You can write either ID attribute or name attribute. Both are one and same. There is no difference between ID attribute and name attribute. Both the attributes are one and same. Am I clear with this? Very good. Nice, guys. I want to tell you something.
Can I use both, sir?
No. No. One, you should use either ID attribute or name attribute. Okay? Using both will give you exception.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Sure. Coming to the point here. There is an interface provided called bean name aware. Bean name aware. What's the abstract method that this interface has provided, guys? Set bean name method. There is another interface provided called application context aware. What's the abstract method, guys? Set application context. My question, who will call these methods? Container. These are the methods provided by the interfaces. And when container will call this method to inject the bean ID. To inject the bean, where is the bean ID? It is configured in the XML file. Who will inject that ID to the bean? Container. By calling which method? Set bean name method. By calling set bean name method, a container injects ID of the bean. Injects what? ID of the bean. ID of the bean. Which means a bean should aware of what is its name. See, bean means your class, na? In Spring programming, every class, whatever you create is called one Spring bean. Every class, whatever you create is called one Spring bean. Every component you create, component means class only, sir. Component means what? Class. Component is nothing but a class. Component meaning it is a class which can contain anything. It's a component. Able to follow me? One class is called one component. You know the name like servlet component. Servlet component. Every servlet class is called a servlet component. Component is nothing but just a class. It's a class which contains logic. That is called component. Tell me, okay. because this word is important in annotations next. I'm going to tell you next annotations, important ones, @ component. Annotations are very important, sir. Annotations, XML is okay for interviews, but for application development, for Spring Boot, microservices, from tomorrow's class, it is very, 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 very important because you are going to learn annotations. From tomorrow, every class important because every annotation important. And all the annotations we use somewhere in the application development in Spring Boot and microservices, definitely each and every annotation we'll use. Whatever is given by Spring, all annotations we need to use, definitely. Okay, right. So this is one bean class. So try to understand the importance first. This is a bean class. Where is this class configured? This is a class, sir, you are writing class, but where are you writing? It's a configuration in the XML file you are writing. With which tag you are writing? Bean tag. At the time of writing the bean tag, for this class you are also providing some ID. This is the ID of the class only, na? This is a class, right? This is the ID of the class, am I right or not? But this class don't know about its ID. This class currently don't know its ID, am I right or not? Till today, we know that what this class don't know its ID. It doesn't know its ID. It is not aware of its ID. Are you able to get my point or not? Aware is a general word, na? Some people say, I am not aware of this. Okay, నాకు తెలియదని ఎట్లా చెప్పాలి ఇంటర్వ్యూలో? సారీ, ఐఎమ్ నాట్ అవేర్ ఆఫ్ దిస్ అట్లా చెప్పాలి. Are you able to get my point? Okay. Suppose there is something asked, but you don't know about that. Don't say, I don't know. I don't know అంటే వాడిని తిట్టినట్టు చెప్పటం. Okay. That is like insulting the interviewer. ఏమని చెప్పాలి? సారీ, ఐఎమ్ నాట్ అవేర్ ఆఫ్ దిస్ అట్లా చెప్పాలి. ఓకేనా? రైట్, గుడ్. సో అవేర్ మీన్స్ వాట్? ఐఎమ్ అవేర్ ఆఫ్ దిస్ మీన్స్ I have an idea of this. I have some knowledge on that. That's called I'm aware. I'm aware of it. I'm not aware of it means I have no idea on that. Right, okay? So I have no intimation on that. Are you able to get my point? Right? Okay, good. Good. చుట్టాల పెళ్ళిళ్ళు అయితే ఉంటాయి కదా, చుట్టాలు ఏమంటారు? కొంతమందికి పగలు ఉంటాయి. పగలంటే శత్రుత్వం, రైట్? పెళ్ళికి పిలవరు. ఓకే, రైట్? మిగతా చుట్టాలు పిలుస్తారు కానీ వాళ్ళు పిలవరు కదా. విచ్ మీన్స్ వాట్? అప్పుడు వాళ్ళు ఏం చెప్తారు? పెళ్ళి ఉంది కదా అంటే నాకు తెలియదు అంటారు. నాకు తెలియదు అంటే ఐ డోంట్ నో కదా, ఐఎమ్ నాట్ అవేర్ ఆఫ్ దిస్. అట్లా చుట్టాలు మా డేంజరు. ఓకే, రైట్? లెట్స్ కమ్ టు ద పాయింట్. Come to the point. Okay, sir.
Sir, English is a funny language.
Okay. So there is, okay, we'll continue with this. So bean has ID attribute and class attribute. This is the ID of the class, guys, correct? This is ID of this class. But this class is not aware of its ID. Because where is the ID configured? In XML file, not in the class. Am I right or not? Now by calling this method, what container will do? Container will inject this ID to this class. Now tell me, if a class wants to aware of its name means its ID only, na? Then that class has to implement which interface? Bean name aware interface. If a class don't want to aware of its name, leave it. No need to implement. Am I right or not? So if a class wants to what? Aware of its name, then that class has to implement which interface? Bean name aware. If it is implementing that interface, then it has to override which method? Set bean name method. Who will call this method? Container. And what container will provide? I mean, what container will inject? ID. Now you tell me the bean has aware of its name or not? That's why it is called bean name aware. So a class which implements bean name aware interface has known of its ID. Otherwise, it doesn't know. Able to follow me? Right. Similarly, application context aware. We know that. Who is going to create objects? Spring container. Who creates objects? Spring container. Spring container creates objects. But this class doesn't know that. This class doesn't know that. We are writing in XML, the configuration. Container will read this XML and will create the objects. If a class wants to aware of the context, if a class wants to aware of the Spring container, means a class by default doesn't know about application context. So to make it aware, if a class wants to aware of its Spring container, then tell me that class has to implement which interface? Application context aware. So which method the class has to override? Set application context. Then what container will do? Means what the Spring will do? Will call this method and will inject the application context object. Will inject what object? Application context object. So there are two things now. What is the use of awareing of my name? Suppose I am a class. I am a bean class. I don't know my ID. Because where is my ID configured? In XML file. But I want to aware of it. What is the need for me? What is the need of knowing about my ID? No. In comes to real time, in my class, I have some methods also. Some business logic methods are available. In the methods, we write log statements. What statements we write? Log. Not SOP statements, but log statements we write. Logging. In Spring Boot, I'll tell you. Log4j is the API used for logging. Okay? We write log statements, sir. Log statements. Log statements are used to write the or trace the application flow into a file. Suppose in future, if any issue occurred, first everybody will open the log file and verifies up to where the code is properly executed, where exception is occurred, and then some debug point will be provided there. Then application gets debugged and problem gets identified. That's called bug fixing. That is called bug fixing. What statements we write? Log statements we write inside the class, inside the methods of the class. When writing the log statements, these log statements will write some message to the log file. While writing the log statements, mostly we are going to use its ID, the bean ID, this class ID. So that in that file, log file, that ID is available. Based on ID, tracking is very easy. In which bean the problem has occurred. Because one application can contain multiple classes. Na? Every class has a unique ID. So by using that ID, it's easy to fix the bug. Identify the issue and fix the bug. So this ID required. ID required in which statement? Log statement. This log statement we are writing in the methods of the class now. But this class don't know its ID. Then tell me if it wants to aware of its ID, then this class has to implement which interface? Bean name aware interface. If it is implementing bean name aware interface, then the class has to override which method? Set bean name method. Then who will call this method automatically? Spring container and injects what? ID of the bean. That's it. Are you able to follow me? So only limited support. Only for two interfaces. Who are the two interfaces? Bean name aware, application context aware. For only these two interfaces, interface injection is supported by Spring Framework. Sir, I am writing my own interface called myInter. MyInter is also one interface only. In interface, I am writing one abstract method. This is my custom interface now. Yes, user defined interface now. Now you tell me will container call automatically this abstract method? and will inject the dependency? No, because interface injection not supported for custom interfaces. Very limited support is available, that too only for predefined two interfaces. Who are they? Bean name aware and application context aware. So this is called what type of injection, guys? This is called what type of injection? Interface injection. So just I'll write a small class so that you'll understand. Next, we also need to discuss bean scope. That is also very important. Bean scope also very important. Okay, bean scope also very important in the interviews point of view. What is the scope of a bean? By default is called singleton. By default is singleton. A bean scope is singleton by default in Spring. So you should know what is singleton. Okay, singleton you have to know, right? Singleton means only one object is created. Only one object is created. That is called singleton. That's called singleton. Okay, na? Singleton, prototype, request, session. Then we have application, previously called global session. Like these 5 scopes are there for a bean. Bean scopes are also very important. Bean scopes is a compulsory question in the interview. All these initial topics are so far whatever we have discussed till these annotations before, you are going to get at least 3-4 questions in the interview. Minimum, that took 3 to 4 questions definitely will get when you are attending any interview. That much important classes, sir. If possible, try to go through the backup videos and try to gain them. Okay, right. Let me write a class, sir. Public class. I am writing a class called service A. Service A. See here, guys. Implements bean name aware. In the life cycle, I'm going to give you one life cycle example. In that, I'll implement all these things. Bean name aware, application context aware. What are the remaining two previous to today? Initializing bean, disposable bean. I'm going to implement all 4 interfaces into this class while I'm talking about life cycle. And I will show you step by step which method is first invoked by the container in the life cycle part. Next which method, I'll show you that. That's called bean life cycle. The process of bean life cycle. Okay, right. We are going to see that. Probably we'll complete that bean scope, bean life cycle tomorrow. Public class service A implements what? Bean name aware. See, for example, I'm taking private string ID. Variable name is ID or name, doesn't matter. ID or ST or anything. ID. One variable. Okay. Now tell me which method I should override. Which method I should override from this interface? Public void set bean name. What is the method name? Set bean. Tell me, is it a setter method or interface method? Interface. Of course, name is starting with a set. If every method starts with a set, is not a setter. At the same time, every method which is starting with a get is not a getter. Are you able to follow me? Of course, every setter method starts with a set. Every getter method starts with a, when to call it is setter method, set followed by variable name. Am I right or not? Set followed by variable name. If that is there, setter method. Are you able to follow me now? Every get is getter, every set is setter is wrong. Okay, na? Right. Understand this. Understand it. Okay. Please try to understand. Public void. What's the method name? Set bean name. This is a method provided by this interface called bean name aware. It has a parameter string name. What I want to do now? Tell me who will call this method? Who calls this method automatically? Container. Container. For injecting what? ID, bean ID. So container will call this method. At the time of calling, it will pass the ID as a parameter. ID may be ID1 or SA or service A, whatever the ID is there. So it is going to pass it as a parameter. So then tell me that parameter value will be stored in this variable called name. Na? What I am writing now? ID is equal to name. This name I am assigning to what? ID variable. Now you tell me this class is aware of its ID or not? Who will call this method? Container. While calling, what container will provide? The ID of the bean. That ID will be stored in which parameter? Name. We are assigning this name to which variable? ID. Now you tell me this class is now known about its ID or not? Yes. Yes, this class knows about its ID. This is called set bean name method. Like this, it will happen. Where you configure the ID? XML file. In XML file, there is a tag called what? Bean. ID is equal to SA. Class is equal to service A. Able to follow me? Tell me what the ID now? SA. Who will inject this ID? Container. By calling which method? Set bean name method. While calling set bean name method, the container will provide this ID value as a parameter. Then you tell me what the value of name? SA. This name is assigned to which variable? ID. Tell me what the value of ID now? SA. Now you tell me a class is aware of its ID or not? Now a class knows about its ID. This is called what aware? Bean name aware. Similarly, there is one more interface available called what aware? Application context aware. I'll give you more information about this next, but only for these two interfaces, what injection supported? Interface injection is supported. So there are three types of dependency injections. What are the three types? Setter injection, constructor injection, and but if somebody asks, will Spring Framework supports interface injection or not? What is your answer? It supports, but limited support is available. That too only for two interfaces. What are the two interfaces? Bean name aware interface and application context aware interface. Only for these two. But if any my own interface or a custom interface, if I write, interface injection does not work. What is interface injection? Interface injection means what? The container injects a dependency by calling the method provided by the interface. Means a dependency is injected by calling the method provided by interface. It is called interface injection. Almost we discussed 1-2 points. I'll explain tomorrow. Then next we are going to see bean lifecycle and bean scopes. Tomorrow is a very important session because you are going to learn about bean lifecycle and also you are going to learn about bean scopes. Okay, so you are going to learn these two, and after this I'll tell you how to make a Java class as singleton. What is singleton design pattern? Singleton design pattern is a very important question also in the interviews. Okay, I'll write all these points. I'll share the notes today. Don't worry on this. Yesterday I didn't get the time, but today definitely I'll do that. Okay, thanks. We'll continue tomorrow, folks. Any questions from your end, guys? Online people.